السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. This is the concluding session of this engagement, and we were discussing about the strategy of the new state in the fruits of reform. And as we have mentioned, in this we will be talking about these 6 points. We had reached, we had covered the first and the second point, and we had reached the third point, which is integrated leadership. The leaders of these two states, both the Zangi state and the Ayyubid state, they were successful in integrating the political and the intellectual leadership. The political leaders and the ulama. And this was a great achievement in creating an integrated leadership which would serve the Muslim Ummah. And in fact, the political leaders, the rulers themselves, they were great scholars. They were inclined to the scholarship, and they themselves were pious and noble scholars. And those who were near to the rulers and the political class, they also had great acumen in scholarship. So, for example, the advisors of Nuruddin al-Zanki and the military leaders, they themselves were good in ilm and akhlaq. From the best examples of this is the wazir of Nuruddin al-Zanki, famous wazir Abu al-Fadl Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn al-Qasim al-Shaharzuri, who came from Baghdad to Dimashq to serve this great leader. He himself was a great faqih and usuli, and he held the best positions in the new political establishment. He was ambassador, wazir, the head of awqaf, so on and so forth. From them, another example is Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Asrun. He was the Chief Justice in Dimashq. He himself was a great scholar. And we know that Salahuddin Ayyubi, his love for knowledge and scholars, and he himself, whenever he would get a chance, he would study and engage with Islamic knowledge. So Salahuddin Ayyubi himself was a faqih who had studied al-fiqh al-Shafi'i, Shafi'i fiqh, and he would conduct the majalis of hadith, sama of hadith, and he would himself attend these majalis. And as the biographers have mentioned, he had even memorized the basic books of hadith and fiqh. So we have some scholars who narrated hadith from Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. And he himself would, as I said, be involved in the majalis of hadith. And he was very near to some great muhaddithin. The best example of this is the muhaddith Abu Tahir al-Silafi. He's from the greatest muhaddithin in the early period, the state of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. So Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, he studied hadith with al-Imam al-Muhaddith Abu Tahir al-Silafi. And it is also said that he memorized the Quran. His memorization of a very famous text in Shafi'i madhab, at-Tanbih, is also very famous. He had memorized al-Hamasa in Arabic poetry, so on and so forth. The main wazir of and his advisor of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, al-Qadi al-Fadil, Abdul Rahim ibn Ali, uh, who was very near to Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, and Salahuddin al-Ayyubi would praise him by saying, لم أفتح البلاد بسيفي وإنما برأي الفاضل القاضي الفاضل. I have not opened the nations by my sword, but by the advice and opinion of al-Qadi al-Fadil. So he was a great politician, but at the same time he was a scholar, he was a faqih, and he had great contribution in Muslim scholarship. So we have many other examples which can be mentioned in this regard. The point is integrating the leadership, integrating the intellectual and the military leadership. And we know that these great rulers, they would, in their advisory board, they would include the scholars also, which was irritating for some political, for some people who held these high political posts. They were also near to these rulers, but according to them, the scholars have no role in the military and political strategy. Okay, so these noble rulers, both Nuruddin Zanki and Salahuddin Ayyubi, would sometimes face criticism also because of their mawqif, because of involving the scholars in these majalis. So we have, for example, Al-Imam Ibn Qadi Shahba has mentioned in his book al-Durriyyah that in a majlis which was about military strategy and planning, when Nuruddin Zanki, he involved some ulama also, he had invited ulama. There, some military leaders, they tried to criticize the ulama because they don't have any role in military strategy. Maybe their opinion will create a harm for the state. In that majlis, Nuruddin Zanki, he said, Ya hada, in sahha ma taquluhu, falahu hasanatun tughfaru lahu, kullu zallatin tadhkuruha, wa hiya al-ilmu wad-din. So when he responded to this military leader, he said, even if your criticism is accepted, this scholar may have these shortcomings, but he has a hasana, he has value in which these shortcomings don't mean anything, and that is the value of religion and knowledge. He's a scholar. أما أنت وأصحابك ففيكم أضعاف ما ذكرت. As for you, you have the same mistakes which you mentioned, even more than that, and you don't have the values which this scholar has. So he would defend the scholars. وَلَيْسَتْ لَكُمْ حَسَنَةٌ تَغْفِرُهَا. And you don't have this hasana, you don't have this value which these scholars have. So he would defend and involve them. And this is very important because this shows that their project was an Islamic project. It was not just mere geopolitics for the interests of the political elite. It was an ummatic project. This is what is missing in our times. We may have some good rulers who are benefiting ummah here and there, but generally speaking, do we have a ruler who has this, who stands for this ummatic project, revival of the ummah and Islam, standing for Islam? I don't think so. So this is the difference. And from the qualities of these, from the strategies of the new state, both Zangi and Salahuddin Ayyubid state, was i'timadu shura. They would strongly rely on mutual consultation. So it was, in a way, it would resemble kingdom, monarchy, because they were the de facto rulers of the state. But at the same time, in order to avoid despotic method of governing, they had created a good nizam of mutual consultation, shura, which is from the founding principles of Islamic political system based on Quran and Sunnah. And this is what was missing in the previous governments. So they would conduct these majalis of shura, where again they would involve all, and this was a way of integrating the leadership also. They would involve all sections of the society, their representatives, and they would discuss matters of military strategy, administration, and everything. And they would try to reach a consensus about the matters. So, for example, the history books have mentioned that in the fortress of Dimashq in year 554 after Hijrah, 19 Safar, when Nuruddin Zanki conducted this majlis of shura, mutual consultation, he invited the elite of the state, he invited Qudat, he invited the judges, and he invited the best elite of the state, and they discussed the matters, and these discussions have been narrated in the books of history. So, for example, Ibn Qadi Shahba has narrated it in al-Kawakib al-Durriyyah. Al-Imam Ibn Kathir has narrated it in al-Bidayah wa nihaya. So they would also discuss economic matters, protecting the creating an economic strategy which is based on justice and balance. And this would be from the, as the scholars have mentioned, this would be from the most important of masalih for the ummah, the most important benefit or the priority with Nuruddin al-Zanki. And these scholars have also mentioned the method of munaqasha. The discussions would be free, they would be freedom of speech would be practiced there. You would be free to criticize any policy of the state, so on and so forth, in order to read the strategy. It would not be a cosmetic way of approaching these matters. So this is another great maziyya quality which they achieved. As I said, one of the main qualities in this strategy was ghalabatul maslaha al-amma. In all policies, in approach, in discussions, in methods and strategies, the maslaha of the awam, the maslaha of the ummah was dominant, not the maslaha of the political elite. This is again the main difference between this reformist movement and state and the previous states or the political establishments. And also, if we compare with our times, it was not the maslaha of the political elite or a political party how to survive more, or a particular class in the political hierarchy. The maslaha of the ummah, the maslaha of the Muslims was always the first priority. So this is one of the greatest points which has been mentioned about his majalis, about his strategy, both Nuruddin Zanki and Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. For this reason, as I have mentioned before, the alqab, the titles which they used, it was also a great strategy. They used the titles which connected them with the ummah. They did not use the titles which represented the family consciousness or the tribe or the political elite. So we have Imaduddin, the pivot of the religion. Nuruddin, the light of the religion. Salahuddin, reform of the religion, connecting it directly with Ummah and Islam. Asaduddin, Najmuddin, the lion of the religion, the brightest star of the religion. Zainuddin, the beauty of the religion. So, yani, this is something great. Another important point here in integrated leadership. So, integrating leadership was not only about conducting these majalis. It was about reaching strategies and policies which are in which the ummatic maslaha is dominant. This is the main point. So in order to, the maslaha of the elite was not dominant. In order to reach this or to cultivate this approach, the political leadership must give sacrifices. So if the maslaha of the ummah and the awam and the Muslims is dominant in your policies, sometimes your own maslaha or the maslaha of your family or the political elite may be compromised. So for this reason, we see great zuhud and ta'affuf in spending the state wealth, using it in the policies of both these great leaders. So as I have mentioned before, the famous biographer of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, Ibn Shaddad, has mentioned this in his Ibn Shaddad. I have mentioned this before. Yani he was contemporary of Salahuddin. He worked with Salahuddin, and he compiled a great biography of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Ibn Shaddad has mentioned that Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, zakah never became obligatory on him in his lifetime. Imagine such a great ruler who controlled a vast geographic area of the Muslim world. Zakah never became obligatory on him. We can imagine this level of sacrifice. And he has mentioned other matters also. Same applies on Nuruddin al-Zangi. So in spending on himself and his family, he was like a very poor person. The nafaqa, the expenditure of a poor, normal poor, not even middle class, but a normal poor person who would live in the Muslim state. So the scholars, the historians have even mentioned his nafaqa. They say, وَكَانَ النَّفَقَتُهُ فِي الشَّهْرِ 150 dirhaman. His expenditure, monthly expenditure, was 150 dirhams only, which is nothing for such a great ruler. 150 dirhams. And he would take it from the shops, his personal property, the shops, from the rental which would come from the shops in the city of Hims. And this was his share from the spoils of war. So every Muslim receives his share from the spoils of war. He would take it, and he had bought some shops, and this would come from the rental, 150 dirhams. And one day, his wife, she complained about this matter, that their nafaqa is very low. They are not able to meet their ends. And she was asking for, increase your salary. You are not a despotic ruler, mashallah. You're working for the ummah. At least your own good and family, you should think about it. So his response was, فَقَالَ مِنْ أَيْنَ أُعْتِيهَا مَا يَكْفِيهَا. His wife, she sent her brother to discuss this matter with Nuruddin. He said, where should I spend on her? من أين أوتيها ما يكفيها والله لا أخوض في نار جهنم في هواها. I would not enter the fire of hell to please and satisfy her desires. إن كانت تظن أن الذي بيدي من الأموال هي لي فبئس الظن. If she thinks that the Baytul Mal, this wealth which I have, which is in my possession, it belongs to me, then this is a very evil thinking. إنما هي أموال المسلمين مرصدة لمصالحهم. This is the wealth of Muslims, which must be used for their benefit. وأنا خازنهم. I'm only the protector. فلا أخونهم فيه. I will never betray their trust. ثم قال, then he said, لي بمدينة حمص 3 دكاكين اشتريتها من الغنائم فقد وهبتها إياها فلتأخذها. I have these 3 shops which I had bought by the money which came from spoils of war. I have gifted these 3 shops to her. She can take it. Subhanallah. Imagine. This was the tarbiyah. That's why this project, it took around 50 years to accomplish. The Madaris, their products, involvement of du'at, great scholars, tarbiyah. This is tarbiyah. A normal ruler, political ruler, cannot do this. وكان نور الدين صاحب مهنة. Nuruddin himself would he would earn his livelihood himself. He would make he would work in for some people. He would make the doors. He would work on the doors, and he would stitch clothes, so on and so forth. So subhanallah, in spite of this, there was economic flourishment in his times, because he himself endured this hardship and difficulty, poverty, in preferring the overall maslaha of the ummah. This is the point. Yani, the leadership, the real Islamic leadership, is the one which prioritizes the maslaha of the ummah, not her own maslaha or the maslaha of the political elite, which we see in our times. So, in spite of the fact, as I said, his personal zuhud, in spite of the personal piety and asceticism of Nuruddin al-Zangi, there was economic flourishment, and this was the reason. And the awqaf, if you read about the awqaf endowments in his times, it is another great story. The Madaris, the seminaries and awqaf, the khanqahs, places where the Sufis would gather for worship. This was something great. And also, this applies to the times of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, as I have mentioned. When he left this dunya, he did not leave anything. He did not leave even a house, as his biographer Ibn Shaddad has mentioned. He did not leave a house. He did not leave any property. He did not leave anything except 1 dinar, his horse, and his sword, and the tent in which he was living. Subhanallah. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, which we speak day and night, we talk about him, we say, oh Allah, give us a new Salahuddin. When he left this dunya, he did not leave anything except 1 dinar. Imagine. So reforms and changes, they don't happen in vacuum. And this affected the political elite also, those who were near to these rulers, helping them, advisors, military commanders, so on and so forth, because the ruler is the best example. So they also prioritize the maslaha of the ummah. We have many examples. For example, the famous wazir of Salahuddin, al-Qadi Fadil, he had great wealth in his possession and so on and so forth, but at the same time, he followed the path of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, and his story has also been mentioned. He would prioritize the maslaha of the ummah. And when the jihad against crusaders was initiated, he sold all his land. He had his own personal property, lands. He sold all his land to free the prisoners, the Muslim prisoners. And he would say, Allahumma innaka ta'lam anna hadha أن هذا الربع ليس شيء أحب إلي منه. He would say, oh Allah, you know that there is nothing beloved to me than this land. يعني it is beloved to me, this is my personal land. اللهم اشهد أني وقفته على فكاك الأسرى. Oh Allah, bear witness that I have sold it, I have given it to free the Muslim slaves, the Muslim prisoners. Imagine. And this was the time when his libas, his clothing, would be worth 2 dinars. He would imagine, he would wear clothing 2 dinars. He needed he needed this wealth himself. This has been mentioned by Ibn Kathir in Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya and other mu'arrikhun. Same is the story with other umara. For example, Al-Amir Lu'lu and other military commanders and leaders. They would be, as these scholars have mentioned, for example, about this Amir Lu'lu, he مع كثرة جهاده, he was a military commander, but at the same time he was كثير النفقات في كل يوم. He would spend great wealth every day. He was دار الصدقات, يعني he would give sadaqat every day. When there was famine and this economic problems happened in Egypt, he would give every day 12,000 loaves of bread in sadaqah to 12,000 people. These are not our times when we have different means of producing and stuff. This was something great. Every day feeding 12,000 people from his personal money, not from the, we are not talking about the expenditure of the state. So you can imagine, this was the path of these great noble people. And the idara, the administration, the military commanders, the elite, political elite, they walked on the same, they took the same path which these noble rulers, Nuruddin Zanki and Salahuddin Ayyubi, had paved for them. They had treaded this path themselves, and this was the path of all these noble people. And as we have mentioned, the Muslim woman, particularly the Muslim women who were into the political system, they were political elite or connected with the families, they would also follow the same path. So, and we can call this methods of ummatic organization. These were different methods in which they organized the Ummah again, which eventually paved way for the opening of Baytul Maqdis. So, subhanallah, we have this scholar, Khalid ibn Muhammad ibn Nasr al-Qaysarani. He requested Nuruddin Zanki to compile a dua, a short, concise dua for himself. And when Nuruddin Zanki, he had forbidden the khutaba in the masajid to exaggerate in du'as about him. Of course, the khutaba would mention the rulers in their sermons, particularly in Jumu'ah and Eid. So he forbade them from exaggerating. Then this scholar, he requested Nuruddin Zanki to compile a dua which is according to his hal, according to his conditions. So if you don't like exaggerations, you compile the dua, and this is the dua which we would make permanent in the khutabs, in the sermons. So he gave this dua: Allahumma aslih abdaka al-faqir ila rahmatik. Oh Allah, reform your poor slave and grant him your mercy. Al-Khadi'i li haybatik, the one who submits. Allahumma aslih abdaka al-faqira ila rahmatik, al-khadi'a li haybatik, the one who submits to your glory. Al-mu'tasima bi quwwatik, the one who seeks support by your power. Al-mujahida fi sabilik, and the one who strives in your cause. Al-murabita li a'da'i dinik, the one who stands strong against the enemies of your religion. Abul Qasimi Mahmud ibn Zanki ibn A. Sankar Nasir Amir al-Mu'mineen. He wrote this dua. You can see the tawadu, the humility of this great ruler, in spite of his great achievements. So this clearly shows that their aim was Ummah, their aim was Allah. They had undergone a very rigorous reform inside out, because they were the products of the Madaris and the reformist movements created by the scholars and the Muslihin. So Nuruddin Zanki, he requested Khalid ibn Muhammad, this scholar, Ibn Nasr al-Qaisarani, to compile a dua for him. Okay. And then when this dua was presented to him, he wrote on it, he said, Maqsoodi alla yukadhaba ala al-mimbar. My purpose is that the scholars should not lie on while standing on the pulpit, because this is a great responsibility. أنا بخلاف كل ما يقال أفرح بما لا أعمل. I'm against everything which is said about me, exaggerated. Should I be pleased with what I don't do? قلة أقل عظيم. So if this is the case, that I am pleased with things which I have not achieved, this is poor intellect. الذي كتبته هو جيد اكتب به به حتى نصيره إلى جميع البلاد. يعني he was pleased with it. Then he added another thing to it. He added ثم يبدأون بالدعاء. Then they should also say this dua: اللهم أريه الحق حقا. Oh Allah, show him, Nuruddin az-Zanki, haq, truth as truth. Allahumma as'iduhu, grant him happiness. Allahumma ansurhu, oh Allah, support him. Allahumma waffiqhu, oh Allah, guide him. So you can see, subhanallah, this is how they achieved the great reform. I wanted to conclude in this session, but inshallah, I think we should dedicate, I think, maybe 2 more sessions to concluding our discussion. So in the next session, we will talk about the remaining points, or let's see how many points can we take: economic development, military advancement, and eliminating the small political establishments. So I have classified it into 3 subjects: economic development, military development, and then we have Islamic unification, which is eliminating the small political establishments and unifying the Ummah under the umbrella of one unified Muslim state. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us understanding and to protect us from evil. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our siyam and qiyam in this blessed month of Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant glory and izzah to the Ummah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us, help us in contributing according to our capabilities to the upliftment of the Ummah. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala nabi al-ummi. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.